Shalom, I'm Rabbi Michael Panitz of Temple Israel of Norfolk, Virginia, and I'm speaking to you from the pulpit of this congregation. At this time, I'm going to speak to you about a sober theme. The theme is Opening Day Disasters. One of the striking and sobering features of biblical narrative is that it does not allow us to stay in happily ever after mode for too long. There's so many examples of this. The Israelites are rescued from Pharaoh's chariots at the shores of the Sea of Reeds, and they sing a paean of triumph and gratitude to God. But 3 days later, they are tormented by thirst, and they're set to grumbling. God gives the 10 Commandments to the people, marking the spiritual high point in all of history, as the Bible recognizes it. But 40 days later, with Moses still on the mountaintop, the Israelites have lost their nerve and demand an idol. This pattern continues into later generations. King David liberates the tribes of Israel from the yoke of the Philistines. He secures Jerusalem as a national capital. He brings the tabernacle, the Ark of the Covenant, into Jerusalem. But then he falls from divine favor by his adulterous affair with Bathsheba and his contract killing of her husband, Uriah. David's son Solomon builds the temple that David hoped to build but did not. Solomon dedicates it, another high point. But soon after, the Bible tells us of his own idolatrous lapses. Most of these lapses are explained, but one fall from the plateau of spirituality is narrated without clear explanation: the strange deaths of Nadav and Avihu, the older sons of the high priest Aaron, and thus the priestly heirs apparent. That is the subject of the beginning of chapter 10 in the book of Leviticus that will be read in synagogues around the world this coming Saturday. They died at what should have been the climax of the dedication of the tabernacle. They died on opening day. This strange narrative has seized me. Somehow, when a tragedy occurs right at the start, it stirs some place in the soul that is primed to respond to that which is poignant as well as sad. I set out to investigate, quote, opening day disasters with a wide lens. I will take you on a brief tour of this meme and then return to the biblical account. The largest scale opening day disaster that comes to my mind was the stampede at the coronation celebration of the Tsar Nicholas II of Russia in 1896. A huge assembly, perhaps hundreds of thousands of people, filled Moscow's Khodynka parade grounds. Eager to receive the free food and the souvenir bling that was set to be distributed, the people stampeded the buffet tables. Well over 1,000 were killed, many thousands injured. On the other hand, some opening day failures that are described as opening day disasters do not merit that title. Sports pages in particular are guilty here. They often carry the expression opening day disaster when what happened was that the home team lost its season debut. A recent example: Major League Soccer team, the San Jose Earthquakes, lost its opener this past February 26th to the visiting New York Red Bulls, 3-1. In typical sports journalistic fashion, a post-game report criticized the decisions of Matias Almeida, the Earthquakes coach, as if it were a life and death matter. Quote, Almeida played formation roulette, which for a team in as precarious of a situation this season is akin to gambling with their playoff lives, and the result was a bullet in their chamber. Little overwritten, no? Similarly, the storied failure of Walt Disney's famous theme park to be ready for its opening in 1955 is remembered within the corporation as Black Sunday. Although the failures did not sink the venture, indeed, they didn't cost more than some dashed expectations. I'll quote from Christopher Klein's Disney's Glitch-Filled Opening Day, Inside History newsletter. He writes, to the disappointment of many children, some of the park's attractions weren't ready to operate on opening day. The Rocket to the Moon, Peter Pan, and Dumbo, the Flying Elephant rides were all closed. Visitors to the unfinished Tomorrowland, which was to depict life in 1986, when a trip to the moon would be an everyday occurrence, remained stuck in 1955. Well, Dumbo the elephant was to fly another day and continues to delight visitors today after 2/3 of a century. I can tell you that my youngest son lives in Los Angeles, and he told me that just in the last year or so, taking his daughter to Anaheim, the Dumbo the elephant ride was the peak experience for her of the whole trip. So, not exactly an opening day disaster there too. Sadly, reality can be far worse than hype as far as opening day mishaps are concerned. Since hunted animals and birds are not kosher, hunting has never resonated within Jewish society, and consequently, I do not typically research National Rifle Association publications for sermonic material. I searched under opening day disasters, and I turned up an NRA article about how to train your hunting dog. It appears in the American Hunter, and it's called How to Avoid Opening Day Disasters. What the article did not mention is what would be a true opening day disaster. For this, we read in the Detroit Free Press, November 18th, 2017, quote, a 38-year-old hunter was shot and killed by another hunter in the northern Lower Peninsula, meaning of Michigan, on Thursday, according to the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. So this was a fatal accident on the opening day of firearm deer hunting season. That is a genuine tragedy. Returning to our Bible story about Nadav and Avihu by way of this NRA excursion, the American Hunter article did make a good point. To avoid opening day disasters, it counseled practice, quote, the 3 Ps: planning, preparation, patience. Now, the rabbis, trying to understand how the deaths of Nadav and Avihu could be understood within a framework of belief in God's justice, offered several explanations. These explanations fit with the 3 Ps. One rabbinic explanation is that the young priests were impatient. Their father, after all, was in his 80s. They wondered, when will he finally pass from the scene so that they could take over. Another rabbinic explanation is that the two young priests were heedless of the precise instructions as to how to give their sacrifices. They thought they could wing it by improvising, whereas in fact, correct procedure was a matter of life or death. They went in without a plan. Now, this is not what we automatically admire in our religious tradition. We are inspired by examples of people transcending the common parameters of human behavior, either by showing a heroic commitment to justice in the face of an unfair power structure, or by demonstrating overflowing compassion for the other. We look to religion with the grid of justice and mercy. The idea of correct procedure is not typically inspiring, but it is vital. Ask any builder, any engineer, any surgeon. For the Bible, rituals of serving God are no less important and therefore no less consequential than the commandments about respecting each other. Perhaps the casual attitude of the two priests was a case of DUI, not as far-fetched as you might think. Were they under the influence? Some commentaries, both Jewish and Christian, point out that right after the narrative of this episode, still in chapter 10 of Leviticus, the Bible commands that priests dare not officiate while inebriated. That is the perspective of the popular illustration from the Bible card series, which you can see right now. This card from 1907, Providence Lithograph Company, depicts the young priests in a flippant mood. It invites you to ponder what is making them situationally inappropriate. Well, the card has a caption which provides the answer. It calls it a golden text. That's a feature of this card series. The golden text in this case is Proverbs, another Bible verse, Proverbs chapter 20, verse 1. Quote, "Wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging, and whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise." To close the circle, the Bible reminds us again and again that we are flawed, but perfectible. The opening day disaster did not end the Israelite experiment of worshiping God in a way that brings out our best rather than our worst. Eleazar and Itamar, the younger sons of Aaron, took over as officiants. A generation later, Eleazar succeeded his father. The Jewish journey continued. The journey has not yet reached its final destination. Humanity still has a lot of growing to do. Don't ignore the setbacks. Learn from them and raise the bar. Tomorrow beckons. Shalom.